Hey, what's up you guys, it's Connor, and today I'm going to be continuing my 2016 reading wrap up with books 101 through 105. You guys know how this works at this point, so let's just get started. The 101st thing that I read in 2016 is going to be Wolf Brother by Michelle Paver. This is the first book in the Chronicles of Ancient Darkness series. This book is set 6,000 years ago, and it follows a boy named Torak who is living with his father, but at the very beginning of the book, his father is killed by a bear, and so he has to go on a journey, and he finds out that he can communicate with this wolf pup, and the wolf pup is going to guide him through the things that he needs to do and take him to where he needs to go to be able to defeat this bear and save the clans of the native populations that are living around where he lives. I mistakenly thought that this was set in America, like Native Americans, a really long time ago, but apparently it's not. It's mainly just a generic native population, but where the author actually set the story with the seasons and everything like that is actually, I think it's Scandinavia is where someone has said, and where she said it in a video. But the research that she's done for this book was absolutely incredible. I like that she made it super historically accurate with all the different cultures and how they would have gone about doing the things in their daily lives that they needed to get done. For instance, finding food or making clothes or the types of weapons they had. So everything was very historically accurate, but then she also added in these different fantasy elements that I really enjoyed. Because this book is so different than any book that I've ever read before, especially for middle grade, I ended up giving this book 5 stars. Absolutely loved it. We'll definitely be continuing with the series, and I've actually had some people recommend other books by Michelle Paver since I read this book, so I am definitely excited to start reading all of her books and go through her backlog. The next book I read is A Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir. This is the second book in an Ember in the Ashes series. I actually did a book review for this, so I'll leave that linked in the card symbol, and you can go check that out if you want to hear more of my thoughts on it. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I liked it, but I had a couple of problems with it. Mainly that it suffers from second book syndrome a little bit, where they're traveling and it's really slow and it's kind of hard to get through it. It took me quite a while to read this book. It's not the smallest book ever, but it definitely took me longer than I felt like it should have. I'm definitely excited to see where the story will continue, because that was one of my main pros about this book, was how I like the direction that the plot is headed, and so I will definitely be continuing with the series as well when the next one comes out next year, hopefully. I then finally finished Madship by Hobb. This is the second book in the Liveship Traders series, which is the second trilogy in the realm of the Elderlings world, written all by Hobb. I started this book a really long time ago, and I wasn't feeling it, and I really wasn't feeling epic fantasy at the time, and so I ended up putting it down, as well as a bunch of other epic fantasy books that I tried to read during that time period. But I picked this one back up because I was watching some other people pick it up and get really excited about it, and got me back being excited about it. So I picked it up and finished it, and I loved it. I ended up giving it 5 stars, and I did put it down, but that was because I wasn't in the mood for epic fantasy. It wasn't anything wrong with this book, but it is a lot slower. The paperback version is, I think, is around 900 something pages or 1,000 pages. This one is 700 pages, this version. So it is quite a lot to get through, and there are a bunch of different characters and a lot of different plot lines to follow, but I loved it. I've never had a book series where a character I absolutely despise so much becomes one of my favorite characters. I was astounded. Like, there's a character in this book who I found so incredibly annoying and frustrating in the first book, and I just wished bad things would happen to her. But in this book, I've finally started to see why people like this character so much, and I am really rooting for them, and I'm so excited to see what happens in the last book of this trilogy. If you guys don't know, this follows a bunch of characters that live on the Cursed Shores, I believe it's what it's called, and they have made a deal with these people called the Rainwild Traders. Sorry, I'm like trying to think of everyone's names. And the Rainwild Traders make them ships that, as after 3 people from their family die on the ship, they come to life, and so they can speak and they can kind of direct things, and they have their own personalities and everything. So it follows mainly one family, the Vestrit family, when their live ship is finally awoken, and then their life goes crazy from there. Crazy in a bad way. Like, the whole thing is like bad thing after bad thing after bad thing. So it's not a very uplifting book, but it's super entertaining, super well crafted. The characterization is amazing. 5 stars. Read it. You can start with Ship of Magic if you don't care about being spoiled for the first series, the Farseer trilogy, but if you don't care about that, then you can definitely start it. Again, recommend it. Read it. The next book I read is Great Bear Lakes by Erin Hunter. This is an author that is like 6 women who write under one name. This series follows 3 different bears, and they're really just continuing their journey. This is the second book in the series, and I like this series. It's not my favorite. I ended up giving this 3 or 3.5 stars. It has a lot of environment-friendly messages, and it talks about how we're kind of taking over more land than we should, and we're not leaving enough for the animals that were living there before. So it has a lot of those messages, which I find really important, but they're super heavy-handed, and so it feels a little bit like you're being lectured, but I still really enjoyed this book. I actually thought that the black bear character was a lot less annoying than she was in the first book. I found her very whiny and just very helpless, and it was frustrating me, and I wanted her to be able to stick up for herself and become a little bit more strong, and so she definitely starts to develop a little bit more in this book. She's still not there yet. She's still a little bit annoying, but I definitely like this book, I think, a little bit more than the first book. I will be continuing, but I just don't know when, because it's not one of those series that's a priority for me. There's like 12 books or something so far, so not a priority, but I will definitely be continuing at some point. Again, 3 or 3.5 stars. And the 105th thing I read is going to be Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom. This is a nonfiction memoir about Mitch Albom's process through saying goodbye to his friend, who is Morrie. It's his friend, but it's also his kind of mentor, his professor that he had in college, his favorite professor that they talked all the time while Mitch was in college, and they usually met up on Tuesdays. And then after college, Mitch kind of lost track of Morrie, and he went his own way, and he didn't really keep in contact, and then he finds out that Morrie is now dying from ALS, and Mitch goes back and makes contact with him, and it's just about Morrie giving Mitch one final class, like one final grouping of lessons that Mitch will have to take with him throughout the rest of Mitch's life. While reading it, I was kind of trying to compare it with The Last Lecture, but it was a totally different breed of book. This one is written by Mitch, who doesn't have the disease, and The Last Lecture is written by Randy Pausch, who did have the disease. So I didn't get as upset while reading this one as I thought I was going to, but I think that the life lessons that Morrie is imparting onto Mitch and the messages that this book holds are super important, and I think that it really just, when you're reading it, resets you a little bit so that you have a little bit of a different perspective after reading it, and you don't take things for granted as much, and you definitely look at things in a more positive way, in a way that makes you want to be a better person. And so I think that this book was really important. I ended up giving this book 5 stars because I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think that it is a very important book that people should be reading. And it's not one of those books that I think I'll reread a lot of the times, but I think that every once in a while you need to reset yourself and just kind of put things in perspective. So this book definitely did that for me. 5 out of 5 stars. So those are the next 5 things I read in 2016. I ended up loving 3 of them, really liking 1, and I just liked another one, which is still amazing. And I really like how I'm doing my reading. I've slowed down and I'm really taking my time with each one. So I think I'm just going to continue the speed that I'm at right now, and I'm not going to try to read any faster. Anyway, if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Comment down below what you've been reading. Do you have any more recommendations for me? Do you have any nonfiction books that are similar to Tuesdays with Morrie, where they kind of give you a different perspective on life and make you appreciate the things that you have more? Leave those all down in the comments, and I will talk to you guys next time.